In this lesson, we are going to be using the quadratic formula to solve applications. And again, this is the quadratic formula, and this is based on the standard form of a quadratic equation. So the first example says, a classic physics problem states that if a projectile is shot vertically up into the air with an initial velocity of 182 feet per second from an initial height of 104 feet off the ground, then the height of a projectile h in feet and t in seconds after its shot is given by this equation. So based on this scenario, this is the formula that we have. Now, it wants me to find the 2 points in time when the object is 143 feet off the ground, meaning the height is 143 feet. And then it wants me to round my answers to the nearest second, so 2 decimal places. So, if the given equation is h equals negative 16 t squared plus 182t plus 104. It wants to know when the height is 143, so I'm going to substitute 143 for h. Okay. So then I need to make it equal to 0, so I'm going to minus the 143. Okay. So then this gives me 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 182t 104 minus 143, if I'm not mistaken, that is 39. Remember to double check because I sometimes do make arithmetic mistakes. So negative 39. Does this simplify? No, it does not. So we're going to go ahead and move forward and determine what my A, which is negative 16, B, 182, and C is, which is negative 39. Now we're going to substitute this into our quadratic equation. Again, we want to rewrite it. Okay, so I have b squared minus 4ac over 2 times a. X equals negative 182 plus or minus. And let's use t because we're dealing with time, so it's always good to use the right variable. Square root of 182 squared minus 4 times a times c, negative 39 over 2 times 182. I'm sorry, 16. Easy to make mistakes. Don't want to do that. Negative 16. Now it's all about simplifying. So I still have 182 outside, plus or minus. This is a big number here. We have 182 times 182. That's a very big number. And then we have 124. So then we have negative 4 times negative 16 times negative 39. And that's also a big number. 2,496. 496. All over negative 32. So now we just have to go ahead and subtract that. So 33,124 minus 2,496 gives me the square root of 30,628 over negative 32. Now, is that a perfect square? Let's see. So what is the square root of 30,698. 30,628, sorry. See if that has that gives me a big number that I seem to be running out of space. So T is going to equal two numbers, one positive, one negative. When I take the square root of 175, I get a decimal, a very big decimal. So 175.008557166 and 92. And then this is all divided by negative t. Now, with this is what I want you to think. I cannot round the answer that I get here, because that is rounding within the problem. So I'm going to make a little bit more space. So you've seen this, okay? So I'm going to erase this part here, and I'm just going to make a little bit of space. Now you have to type in this completely in your calculator. That way you don't round. So you're going to have two things. T equals negative 182 plus the square root of 30,628 divided by negative 32. And then you're going to have T equals 182 minus the square root of 30,628 divided by negative 32. Now, one of these two is going to give you, both of them are going to give you positive answers, but one is going to be very small. Let me see if I have this correct. Okay, so the positive one is going to give you, after you rounded, 45 seconds. Okay, and the second one is going to give you 10.93 seconds. Okay, so when you are asked to type in your answer, you can type it in. You see how it says round to two decimal places. So they want you to round, definitely to round. So this is what you want to type in. Okay, now if the decimals were not able to work, you could try typing this completely, but they specify they want us to round. Therefore, the two rounded answers should work. Now, if you round within the problem here, that's not going to work because you're going to be off a few decimals. So you don't want to do that. You want to type this whole thing in your calculator. You want to say negative 182 plus the square root of 30,628. Whatever number you get from that addition, then divide it by negative 32. And the same for the bottom one. Okay? So the two answers, let me type them in here so it looks... that looks bad. Whoop. Try it again. 0.45, comma 10.93. Those are your two answers. Let's see another example. Okay, in this example, it says a rectangle is 3 miles longer than is wide. Find the dimensions of its area. If its area cannot read. If its area is 115 square miles. If its area is 115 square miles. So I like to start with a drawing. It doesn't seem bad to me. A nice drawing. Okay. And they're telling me that the area equals to 115. I need to do something about the width and something about the length. So the formula for area is length times width. So what do I know about A? What do I know about L? And what do I know about width? So the area is 115. It says a rectangle is 3 miles longer than is wide. Okay, so I know something about the length. But what is the width? Does it say the width is? It does not. And when you don't know, we're going to use X. So So then it's longer, so it's 3 miles longer than whatever the width is, so x plus 3. Now, given this information, we're going to go ahead and substitute this into our area formula. So A equals length times width. So I know A is 115. The length is x plus 3, and the width is x. Since I'm going to be solving for the x, I'm going to go ahead and distribute. This is x squared plus 3x. And know that we are using the quadratic formula to solve this. So I'm going to write this here. Okay. Now I need it to be equal to 0, so I'm going to minus the 115. Okay. So now again, what my A, B, and C are. A is 1, B is 3, and C is 115. So x equals -3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times A times C divided by 2 times 1. So x equals -3 plus or minus the square root of 9. And what is that? -4 times 125 times, oh, not 125. What am I saying? 115. 4 times 115. So -4 times 1 is -1. -4 times -115 is positive 460. 460 divided by 2. So then again, we keep going. Continue to simplify. 9 plus 460 is 469 divided by 2. So then we have to look for the square root of 469. I don't think that has a perfect square. So, but double check that. You always want to double check if that has a perfect square. It does not. It's a decimal. So here we go again with the decimal. So we're going to have -3 plus the square root of 469 over 2. And then we're going to have -3 minus the square root of 469 over 2. We're going to get two answers. The largest one is, the largest one will be your, you see how it says two answers. Oh, we're going to get two answers. One is going to be negative and one's going to be positive. We're going to ignore the negative because we're dealing with length. And from this one, I can tell you that because here you have -3 minus 469, that's going to be a negative answer. So we're going to ignore this one. So the one that we're going to keep is -3 plus 469 over 2. And this is your width. Okay. Now, remember that the length is 3 more than the width. So I'm going to try my very best to type it in here so you can see how you're supposed to type this in. So the length is, the width is, it's what we found out right here. This is the width. So the width is negative, this thing here, -3 plus square root of 469 over 3. You want to put parentheses on the top. Over 2. Hopefully you guys catch that. 2. And then the length, it's the same, but plus 3. So -3 plus square root of 469 over 3 plus 3. It's a, let's say, funky way of writing the answer. I understand that. But that is our two answers. Those are our two answers. And the way, again, for you to make sure you know, you see how this is negative here? Oops. Negative. Okay, I'm not right. Okay, there. Whoop. See, this is negative. Oh, it doesn't want to write. Anyways, this area right here, it doesn't want to write. But for you to determine which one of the two is going to be a negative, you can always type in your calculator. Ignore the negative answer. You're going to keep the positive as your width. And from that, you use that to find the length. I erase that. To find out the length. Okay? Let's see one more example. Nope. Doesn't want to go to the next one. Okay. So with this, again, you want to make sure you keep in mind that the negative answer you are not going to be using. Do not use the negative answer. Trying to go to the next page, but this is not working. I think I know why. Okay, there we go. The next example. Okay, so a rectangle has a perimeter of 74 meters and its area is 322 square meters. Find the dimensions of the rectangle. So the purpose of this problem is for the purpose of this problem, the width is shorter than the length. Now, with this problem, if you notice, it first say the perimeter, and then it said area. So you're not really given much information other than those two things. So if you have a rectangle, the perimeter is 74 meters and the area is 322 square meters. The formula for the perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And the formula for area is length times width. If you notice, you are using similar variables like the length and the width. So for this, we're going to go ahead and substitute what we know for each formula. So 74 is the perimeter. And 322 is the area. Now, from here, we're going to solve one of the two equations for one of the variables. So let's use the shorter equation, which is the area. So I am going to solve for L. So I'm going to divide W to both sides. So this means L equals 322 divided by the width. Now I am going to substitute this formula into the other one. So let's put the perimeter one. Okay, so I'm going to substitute the area into the perimeter. So that way I can have an equation with just with the same variables. If you notice here, I have length and width. I want just to have the length. So this is going to be 74 equals 2 times 322 over W plus 2W. I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 2. So that's 74 equals, what is that? I don't know that big number. That's 644 over W plus 2W. Now, if you notice, we have a fraction, and we should certainly want to eliminate that fraction. So I'm going to multiply everything by the denominator of that fraction, which is W. So then this becomes 74W equals 644 plus 2W squared. I'm going to go ahead and add and take this to another page. So that was 74W equals 644 plus 2W squared. Let's double check. Okay, that looks good. So now I'm going to make it equal to 0 by subtracting the 74W to both sides. At the same time, I'm going to rewrite it in descending order, which means that 2W squared goes first, minus the 74W plus the 644. If you notice, so let's just write what I did there. We equal it to 0 and write in descending order. Okay, So here I notice that they're all divisible by 2, so I'm going to simplify by dividing by 2. Okay. Divide everything by 2. This still 0 equals w squared minus 37 w plus 322, right? Okay, now I have my equation in the standard form of a quadratic. So from here, I am going to use the quadratic formula to solve. Okay. So I'm going to identify my A, my B, and my C. A is 1, B is negative 37, C is 322. Seems like I need another page for this problem, right? So let's move it here. Again, make sure we rewrite our quadratic formula, because the more we write it, the more we'll memorize it. Substituting it, what was B? Negative 37. Okay. Seems like we're going to get big numbers here too. A is 1 and C is 322. Divided by 2 times A. That one is always easy, which is good. So x equals a negative times a negative is a positive. Plus or minus, that seems like a big number. 1,369 minus 1,288. Divided by 2. Negative 37 plus or minus, when you subtract this, you get 81 divided by 2. From here, we are going to break this into our 2 answers. Okay, so I have 37 plus, what is the square root of 81? That's the nice one, it's just 9. And 37 minus 9 over 2. I'm going to go ahead and do that. For the top, the positive one, we have 23, and the negative one, we have 14. And for the, in context with this problem, we're going to say that the smaller one is the width, and the largest one is the length. So, for this problem, let's just recall it back. We're given 2 different formulas that we need to work with. And we are using literal equations to solve this. So we have one formula with just one variable, which is what we have here, just the W. Once we have that, we are going to set A equal to 0 in order to solve using the quadratic formula. We did that. And then we substitute our values into the quadratic formula, simplify, and we are left with our 2 answers.